Good evening, Saints. I hope that you're doing pretty well. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this upcoming week's Bible reading so we can stay excited and we can keep on track as we leave the Carnival season and head towards Lent. And so it starts off a little slow. We start off at Numbers chapter 1, and we're starting to move through this book. And so we begin with lots of names, as before. I find it interesting. You may as well. But then things really pick up. And so in chapter 11, we get to meet two very interesting heroes, Eldad and Medad. And we learn about the presence of the Holy Spirit, which is pretty cool. You want to pay attention to that. In chapter 12, we see that even within Moses' own family, we have some issues of jealousy, and we see what happens with that. And then we move on to chapter 13, and what begins to transpire is the issue, the sin, the rebellion that led to the people being banished, or rather, being sentenced to 40 years in the wilderness. And so it really picks up around then. And so if you have to skim over some of the names, that's okay, but make sure that you're really paying attention starting around chapter 10, chapter 11, and things will pick up in a really, really exciting way. Towards the end of this week's reading, we'll also see an example of the earth opening up and swallowing some folks whole. And what's interesting is that if you've seen the Ten Commandments, one of the somewhat fictional composite characters in the Ten Commandments actually shows up in this particular point. So that's all to say that we're kind of at the heart of our time in the wilderness. And so make sure that you're reading along, having as good a time as you possibly can. And I'll see you next week.